I'm not doing PowerPoint.
The lights back on.
Yeah, we can just have the lights
Ask
back
her to
on.
put the lights back on. Yeah.
Can you hear me? Yes. Okay, good afternoon. It's great to see many women again and meet some of my old friends also. As you probably gathered, I go back a long way to the early 90s and of many conventions. But what I want to stress here, why I felt it was important for me to speak here today was that this is not just another negotiation process. Many of us have gone through many of these UN negotiation processes before. And, you know, you might think, why this fuss again about another UN negotiation process? What's the big deal? I mean, we've got the poverty issues covered, we've got the health issues covered, we've got education covered. I mean, all of us are probably in some way or another working on some of these issues, right? So why are we making this big fuss about gender and climate change? Why talk about it? Why do we feel that women need to be at the forefront? Well, it's because we honestly believe that there is a paradigm shift for development in all of our countries. And that paradigm shift is going to affect you. And believe me, they're going to forget about poverty, they're going to forget about education, they're going to forget about everything we fought for in all of these other conventions if we don't pay attention to this. And that's why I think it's very important for us, all of us, to pay attention to what's going on and be involved. And I know many of the women's organizations, even in my own country, they're not really involved yet, or they don't, you know, they're doing other things. They say, you know, the climate change thing is something for the environment ministry. I mean, it's all the things that we're used to. But I really want to make a plea today to all of you who are working in this arena, in the women's world, that pay attention, because it is important, because this is going to change the world in the next decades. And major decisions are being taken, major decisions about how we are going to develop, major decisions on what the priority issues are going to be in our countries. And if we're not there, we can, I mean, they won't address our poverty issues, they won't address our education issues. So let's make sure that we do look at all of that. And that's why we're talking to you today. Now, in terms of what's going to happen, what must happen at Copenhagen, at the COP16 in Mexico, the women's organizations, civil society, gender equality advocates, and all the other people of the world need to be rigorously engaged this year. We feel that everybody needs to get engaged. Because unless we get the whole world engaged, this is not anymore a matter of a few of us doing our thing at a UN convention. No, I mean, we see the things happening around us in the world. Just as we're talking to Haiti with the Ministry of Environment about setting up a food security program, the earthquake hits Haiti. Forget the food security program, you know? Things like that are happening all around us all the time. Just as when we think we've reached somewhere or we're going somewhere, these things are hitting us very hard. And yet at the same time, what we're experiencing in the countries also is that we still see somebody who's heading a disaster risk reduction institute in one of the countries, and he says, women have nothing to do with this. Why do you want me to talk about gender and climate change? Because I'm talking about disaster risk reduction. I don't think it's important to talk about gender in that respect. And yet at the same time, the statistics are there. There are statistics there that more women die, really, really more women die during these disasters. And we have the statistics already for the tsunamis in Asia. We have statistics from earthquakes. We're going to need more statistics. We're going to need more data. And we need all of you to be part of gathering those analysis and statistics. So at every level, we feel that there needs to be this year awareness raising, mobilization, capacity building, and networking. At every level, and particularly at the national, and the local levels, and across sectors. One of the most difficult things we from WeDo have found in some of the work that or some of the assessments that we're doing with countries and with partners in countries, is that the complexity of getting everybody involved that you need to get involved. This is not about only the women ministry or the gender or the environment ministry, getting those two together. It involves many more actors, and the complexity that you encounter on the local and the national level to get everybody involved. Those of you who have worked on the ground know what I'm talking about. But we need to do that. We need to work across sectors. The research and the data, as I mentioned already, we need the empirical evidence and we need more than the rhetoric. And that is also, again, at every level. To convince our governments, and we were very happy with the process last year because those women who worked with the governments, who convinced them that this was an issue, could show empirical evidence, could show cases that they had worked on. They could convince the governments that this is the real world that we're talking about. We're not just talking out of our head. And we need methodologies at every level. We need to produce criteria, we need to produce indicators. Yes, it is going to be hard work. We need to be efficient, and we need to make sure that we have the programs and the funds to do these things. At the national level, there's a lot of work to be done, and I'm glad that many of you, of course, are from the national level and are working at the national level, because you need to advocate at the national level. National plans are being made about climate change. Some of our countries are calling them low carbon development plans. Some countries are calling them, and when you talk about low carbon development plans, no women's organization is getting involved there. You know, some of our countries are talking about environment development plans. Some are talking about green development, green economic development plans. Some countries are talking about green jobs. What does all that mean? All of these things at the national level, you need to be aware of them. You need to advocate that you're part of them. And it's not just about microfinance for women when we're talking about green economic development or green jobs. Make sure you also explain that. One of my biggest issues is that when we're talking about microfinance for women, I also want to see medium finance for women, and I want to see large finance for women. I'm sorry, however you want to call it. But it has to have the whole range of finance for women, and they need to build it up like a career. It doesn't bring me development when it's only there at the lowest level. So let's make sure that in this arena also we make sure that there are issues that are coming up again because they're talking about development. Everything about climate change has to do with our development. Of course, we can use and build from existing policy mechanisms. Our countries that are implementing CEDAW are implementing the MDGs, the Beijing Platform for Action, but also the climate policies. We need to get onto the climate policies. We need to be able to influence the climate policies, but we do not need to start from scratch, because if we have the CEDAW Convention, we can integrate the CEDAW Convention into our climate policies. What are we doing at the global level? We're engaging in the global negotiation process. Yes, we are engaging in the global negotiation process, and we want as many women there as possible. We want you to be involved when they're doing something at the national level. We want you to be involved at the regional level, but we want all the women to be involved at the global negotiation level, because that global policy is going to impact on all of us. There is, fortunately, a new constituency of women at the UNFCCC process. Let's make use of it, let's join it, let's all be part of that constituency and make sure that we keep ourselves informed of what that constituency is doing. For those of you who are interested again, the UNFCCC process, besides the fact that it was the only convention that didn't include women when it was created, or anything about gender, it also has its own registration process. So even if you have one of those blue badges, the ECOSOC badges, don't think you're going to get in to the UNFCCC negotiations. You're not. Unless you register as an observer for this process, you're not going to get in. So don't have the illusion that because you get into all the other UN conventions, you're going to get into this one. We have to tell everybody about it. And we have very short deadlines, because the deadline to sign up as an observer for this UNFCCC process is March 15.